One of my favorite episodes is one where I make salmon sinigang. And when I researched kind of the origins of salmon sinigang, because that's my favorite variation of sinigang. It's kind of like a strange variation because salmon isn't really like, like native fish to the Philippines. And so when I looked up the story behind it, I learned about the Filipino cannery workers that were in Alaska that had migrated to the U.S. Folks would kind of like follow the seasons. So some people were working in Alaska in the canneries, and they were living in really poor conditions, especially compared to like other non-Filipino workers. Like they had worse living conditions. They are like eating fish scraps. And so one of the things that they would make is like salmon sinigang out of like the fish scraps from the canneries. And, when I would read things like that, it ignites this fire in you where like you realize that food is not in a vacuum. Like food is influenced by all of the things that are happening to us in history and in culture. And it's just like you can never look at things the same way. You're like, oh, like Filipino spaghetti is like this because of US intervention in the Philippines. Like you can't look at things the same way anymore. So I felt like, if I could kind of ignite that same feeling for someone else from just watching like a 1 minute cooking video, then that would be amazing.
Like speaking of Alaska, you remind me that Larry Itliong, before he did the Delano Grape Strike, actually worked in those Alaska canneries. So now I'm kind of envisioning him eating salmon sinigang during that time, and not out of preference but of necessity. It's pretty crazy to think about that. Speaking of that, out of everything that you've discovered during your journey doing these projects, what's one fact that surprised you the most?
One thing that I was really surprised by was I have an episode about pies, like I make pineapple pie and buko pie. And I didn't realize until I was working on that episode that there was like hundreds of American teachers that actually like sailed to the Philippines in the early 1900s to stand up basically an equivalent of the American school system. And they would like teach home economics, and they would actually like really push American food through class, and like teach like American recipes and also push American products. So it's like a form of like education of the mind, and then also like selling and marketing products from the US to like Filipino students. And so it just really shocked me how, or I guess not shock, but like, wow, you really see how deep colonization runs to the point where it's like it's affecting your mind and then also like what you eat. And I think that was something that like made me really mad because like I love buko pie, like we all love like peach mango pie and things like that. But you think about like where it comes from, and it really like has a context.
Yeah. I just recently found out that they would also go into the classrooms and charge you like a peso for every Tagalog word that you would say. So that you would only speak English. Isn't that crazy? I think when I heard that, that made me really want to learn Tagalog even more. I always wanted to learn it,
Mm-hmm.
but now it kind of puts an urgency on it because it was taken from us, you know?
That's nuts.
It's
Yeah.
they were
Wow.
charging.
Yeah. That's like the reverse swear jar,
Exactly.
and it made it a bad thing.
Exactly. It's
Nuts.
why, and
Yeah.
then so when you think about when we have these conversations about language, Tagalog versus, and how Taglish and all of this stuff, it's because of that. That's the
Mhm.
root of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's there's so much within our history. It's crazy. Even with our food, like people make fun of some of our dishes, but that's what we had.
Mhm.
That's what we had around us. So yeah, it may not sound like the best delicacy or the most healthy, but we really used what we had around us. crazy. So I get just as passionate as you do because I'm just like, man.
Yeah, I think like when you see the level at which things were institutionalized in history, and then you see the parallels in your life now, where it's like, wow, like I now have to pay money to learn Tagalog, which I should have
Exactly.
just known it. But also like, you know, the different ways that American culture can be really like influential in the Philippines, or, you know, this feeling to assimilate. There are like the reverberations of these things that happen in history. It's still relevant to us today.